Menopause isn't an employer failure. It's a medical and cultural failure that got handed down to HR. And I just don't think that this is helpful for the women or businesses. Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Menopause Moxie podcast, where we strategically challenge the status quo on perimenopause, menopause, and female hormone balancing. I'm clinical hormone coach Marie Hoäg, here with my producer and co-host, Maggie. We're going to talk about menopause in the workplace. We're not going to talk about accommodations. We're going to start with the reason why so many high-performing midlife women can't sleep, can't function, can't think, and can't tolerate stress. These things don't just happen to women because of aging or working too hard. They happen because their estrogen is in decline, or it has gotten so low that the brain and body are in distress. The most effective solution isn't building workarounds for symptoms at work. It's ensuring women have access to competent hormone prescribers and advanced HRT protocols so they can thrive at work and in their personal lives. Women don't need special handling. They need their depleted estrogen tank filled to the brim. Hello, Maggie, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Marie. Boy, I just want to say, if you're a woman in midlife struggling at work, this conversation is for you. Okay, Marie. So the point here is not to dismiss women who are struggling in the workplace. It's to challenge the idea that menopause struggles are the new normal and we should all adapt. So let's start at the beginning. When organizations raise the topic of menopause at work, what are they typically proposing?
When employers bring up menopause at work, what they're talking about is making accommodations to the symptoms that women are experiencing because they're hormonally deficient. And there is this normalization of midlife and older women of being, hormonally out of balance. And because of this normalization in our society, we're talking about menopause more. We're talking about how much women are suffering, but we're also talking about how everybody in society needs to adapt to women's suffering. And right now, the menopause in the workplace is putting the responsibility of making accommodations for the workplace for women so women can stay in the workforce. Women are having hot flashes and they're not sleeping at night. They're showing up exhausted and tired. And so the menopause in the workplace movement is really to train managers to acknowledge how miserable their employees are, and then to make right policies, offer flexibility, and create accommodations, not just for the woman, but everybody else in the organization has to be involved in this education and training, and they have to alter their lives and their workplace environment to accommodate a hormonally deficient woman. So the underlying assumption is that women will be impaired, and women are impaired. So the workplace must adapt to women's misery, their brain decline, their low energy. And really, the business case is framed around, if we make these accommodations, we can get more production out of these women. If we don't make these accommodations, then women will continue to talk to each other about how horrible they feel. There's just conversations going on about hot flashes, how horribly somebody slept. And it can take up a lot of employee time, to be honest with you. I mean, when women are feeling miserable. So I'm happy about this whole menopause in the workplace movement. Like, let's acknowledge that women don't feel good when they're at work, but let's really acknowledge that women don't feel good anytime their hormones are deficient. There's a real danger here by approaching it this way. And the danger is when we're making accommodations for women's misery, we're not addressing the actual cause of the misery, which is the hormone deficiency. So this is where I think everything really gets missed here. If we're all jumping on the bandwagon of making accommodations for women's misery, and furthermore, treating the misery as a normal thing that everybody has to adapt to, well, then to me, that's the danger. No matter what accommodations you make, you cannot blow enough air on a woman with a hot flash and make her feel good. You cannot give her her own space in a darkened room or whatever she needs to make her feel good. None of these accommodations work. None of them increase production. None of them make a woman feel good. I mean, it just temporarily, well, thanks for the fan. Thank you that I can actually wear a tube top to work now instead of my uniform. And, that goes real well with everybody else in the company. I just don't think this is a good approach for women. And it doesn't really address the root cause. If we really care about women in the workplace, we'll give them enough hormones so their brains and bodies can work and they won't have any symptoms to make accommodations for. And so this is really my stance on this, Maggie. It isn't
Okay.
an employer failure, really, is what we're coming down to here. Menopause isn't an employer failure. It's a medical and cultural failure that got handed down to HR. And I just don't think that this is helpful for the women or businesses.
So, when we're talking about menopause at work, in your expertise as a clinical hormone coach, what's the real problem underneath menopause at work? What's really going on for women?
Well, they're losing themselves. Women are losing themselves. I mean, women will feel in stage 1 perimenopause, they'll start to feel the decline of self, but it's really not acknowledged much. And like women know what's going on. Somewhere in women's early to mid 30s, when they're in stage 1 perimenopause, they will feel not themselves. They'll feel something changing in them, and they'll talk to their friends about it. But as time goes on, they'll feel challenged at work because they'll start to notice they can't pull up information in their brain like they used to. They can't form words to the sentences they want to create to communicate to other people about the projects they're working on. The creativity factor just goes out the window. And so women low on estrogen have a greater difficulty performing their jobs because they can't focus. I mean, this whole ADD for women, menopause, that's an estrogen deficiency side effect. No woman with estrogen deficiency does not experience some form of ADD. So you can't expect a woman to focus on her work, be creative in her thoughts, contribute to meetings in a positive, constructive way. What's happening is women are feeling so horrible that all they want to do is talk about how horrible they feel. This is not good for morale at all, because you start talking about something for 17 seconds and another equally negative thought accompanies that one. And then if you have a group of women talking about how horrible they feel all day long, and this is the topic of conversation, nobody gets any work done. How productive is that business? So what employers experience with menopausal women are performance and mood problems. And so what are they left to do? Because society is not offering them the real solution. So really, Maggie, accommodations can reduce stressors, but they cannot refill an empty tank that is causing the problem in the first place. And this is what I really want to say. Make all the accommodations you want. The woman will still feel like hell. Women don't need special handling. They need hormones. That's what they need. It's like, in order for a woman to feel good, she needs plenty of estrogen and progesterone in her brain so she can think and function and be a team player and contribute in a creative way and in a productive way. The goal isn't special handling, like I said. Let's give women what they need. The special handling, really, Maggie, is here's some good HRT, not the minuscule low dose HRT we've been gaslighting women about. Adequate dose HRT, and there's a big difference. And we talk about that quite a bit in other episodes.
Well, I've heard you say that if a woman is suffering, the ethical solution isn't to redesign her job around the suffering, it's to restore her depleted hormones so she feels alive again.
Yeah, I mean, does it make sense to you? Let's everybody adapt to this woman's suffering. So when she's having a hot flash, it's just all tell her how horrible we feel for her and talk her through it as if that's going to help. I mean, that's so disruptive to the workplace. When a woman is sitting there, at her desk and all, she has a hot flash, and now the phones are ringing, but she's dealing with her hot flash and she's telling her friend is getting up and getting her some water, and everybody is complaining about how horrible hot flashes are. So here we have 20 minutes of productive employee and time. And I don't mean to sound like, strictly business about this, but well, there was 20 minutes the business will never get back. I'll tell you, some of these accommodations these employers have to make is they need to have a separate temperature control. The employees are allowed to wear pretty much whatever they want as long as they can wear their uniform over. So they get allowed to wear layers and not follow the dress code standards to appeal to their temperature issues. They have flexibility. They won't get punished if they don't come into work for a couple days because they're having menstrual issues, or hot flashes, or they don't feel good, or they didn't sleep that night. So now the entire team is without a team player that's very important on these projects because they didn't sleep. So these accommodate it goes beyond just the expense of, setting up the desk that's just perfect, fans, everything, all the equipment that a menopausal woman would need just to make her happy. And then you put her down to work, and guess what? She still feels like hell. So no matter how much money the employer puts into any sort of these physical accommodations, or, working from home, or adding more flexibility with work time, it's just like you can't run a business. You just cannot run a business that way. It just doesn't seem feasible. And I just, like I said, Maggie, it's not about not helping women. I mean, because, we'll talk about what women need to, what we can do to help women, but this is just not the way to do it.
This theme shows up again and again in this podcast. And, everyone is trying to come up with these various solutions to help women um, because of the way they feel with their depleted hormones. So it might be psychotropics, it might be workplace accommodations, it might be special diets. And again, the answer is simple and it's right there in front of us. But for some reason, we go this way, up and down, instead of just going to what the simple answer and solution is.
And it doesn't fix all the problems. I mean, just giving a woman an ergonomic chair and a fan doesn't fix the problems. To me, it's just theatrics. Because what do you do when a woman is just too difficult to talk to because she's irritable? Her responses are just out of proportion with the situation at hand. What about the rages that women go into at just a drop of a hat? What about her inapproachability because nobody wants to talk to her because they don't know what they're going to get when they approach her? What about all these things? How do you accommodate for that? Therapy for the other staff. What about that? It's like, because I've had to work with menopausal women before, and they are not happy campers. I mean, I remember a woman where I would just make sure that I would not cross the threshold of her office. I never knew what I was going to get when I walked there. And I was always nobody should have to do that. So what about the accommodations for the other employees who have to handle these women who are having these mood disturbances? So now is a solution. Okay, well, so now we have mood disturbances. So now that's the employer's problem. Now the employer has to manage the patient's mood issues. So now we're a clinic. All of this just doesn't sound reasonable to me, Maggie.
Well, Marie, you've said in the past that menopause is the headline, but not the beginning. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
Yeah, everybody's talking about menopause because it is really the topic du jour for good reason. But most menopausal women have been suffering for years. This isn't just all of a sudden. I mean, women have gone through 3 stages of perimenopause before they experience the anniversary of menopause. And most women, the majority of women, have had menstrual cycle problems for years. And a lot of them are put on birth control pills and psychotropic drugs. So the accommodations that are being discussed at menopause in the workplace go beyond menopause. They're incorporating menstrual cycle health as well, because we're back into the mood disturbances, the hot flashes, the things that women feel now, no matter at what age, whether it's a menstruating woman, a reproductive age woman, a perimenopausal woman who's having menstrual cycles, but they're irregular. Then you have your menopausal woman. They're all suffering from the same thing. They're all suffering from hormone deficiency, more pointedly, estrogen deficiency. So typically, this has been a long-going problem for years, this hormone decline or hormone deficiency for years. And now we have to put this on the employer, because the big movement right now is like last year with the new standards that have come out, they've included menstrual cycle health to make accommodations for women who have migraine. I missed 2 to 3 days of work every month from my menstrual migraines. I was so worried about my job because I thought I was going to get fired. I mean, because my employer was just like, "You're gone 3 days out of the month. We can't have that." Like people, the other staff want 3 days off a month too. So it's like, Why do you get this when you're only allowed this many days off and you're well beyond your pay time off? So it's stressful for women when they're going through this and they fear for their job, as I did mine many times. And especially if their brain isn't working and they've got deadlines and projects that they have to work on and they can't do it because their brain isn't working.
Yeah. So again, I'm not hearing you say, suck it up, women. It's women indeed are having a lot of these symptoms and experiences, whether it's PMS and migraines and things like that, or it's heading more towards menopause and brain fog, losing words, mood disorders, things like that. So that's real because the estrogen decline is happening.
Yep.
So nobody's saying that anybody's making that up. And the other side of it is that accommodations aren't going to fix that. They're simply accommodations. And you're of the stance, based on your clinical expertise, why don't you just go straight to the solution, which is hormone replacement, filling up that tank?
Yeah, really, the menopause becomes a problem in the workplace. It becomes a workplace crisis because the system has failed to address the hormone inadequacy early and aggressively enough. If we address estrogen and hormone deficiency early, like in stage 1 perimenopause, or even long before that, if patients are presenting symptoms of hormone deficiency, such as PMS, which we've normalized. Another thing that we've normalized is PMS, but just another sign of estrogen deficiency, which should give our listeners an idea about how long they could have been hormonally deficient. So PMS, perimenopause, and menopause are all caused by hormone deficiency. Women are just at different ages and different degrees of the deficiency. So if we address this early on and give women hormones in stage, at least in stage 1 perimenopause, so they don't have to go through stage 2 and 3 perimenopause or even menopause at all. You want to talk about workplace production. You give a woman estrogen and a business can really thrive because their employees are thriving.
Before we get into the workplace signs of hormonal decline, what are the two biggest myths that you want to dispel right now, and two truths you also want to share about menopause and work?
The number one myth is that women believe that because they're taking HRT, that they can't be estrogen deficient. And they feel like, so if I'm on HRT, what I'm feeling at work can't be my hormones. But let me make it clear, this whole hormone thing at work doesn't end at work, Maggie. I mean, people talk about menopause at work. Women are feeling just as miserable at home. And especially if they're miserable at work, then they're miserable at home and they don't feel good. It's not just 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 women feel miserable, it's all the time. And so women who are on HRT, they think, well, I'm on hormones. My doctor said I'm on the right dose. My doctor said my labs are normal. I can't be estrogen deficient. Well, that's one of the biggest myths. Women can be estrogen deficient even on HRT. If you haven't heard the episode 6, where we talk about the 4 generations of HRT, this will enlighten you. But patch therapy is a low dose HRT system, which is what most women take. Most women take low dose HRT systems that are designed to keep women in a state of deficiency. So it offers women temporary relief, but it's short lived. It lasts maybe about 3 to 9 months at most. And then when women will go back to feeling horrible because they were only given about a third of the amount of estrogen their brains and bodies require to fully function and thrive and be productive at work. So just because a woman's on low dose HRT doesn't mean she's getting enough estrogen. In fact, it's a guarantee that she's not. The other myth, women just think, oh, I'm just getting old. I'm getting old. You're getting old because your estrogen levels are telling your brain that you are. And that's the big myth, is estrogen dictates the aging process of women. When women fully restore their estrogen, the brain and body does not fall apart. In fact, you can actually restore brain function, vitality, mood stabilization by restoring estrogen in the right range, the optimal range, the hormone sweet spot. And so it's not just aging, and women shouldn't just push through it. And that's what we're told. Oh, this is aging, and we're all in this together, and everybody's miserable. Let's just get through it together. I just don't find that very effective for anybody other than,
Well,
temporary.
and I would just also jump in here and say that we're not talking about signs of aging like wrinkles on the face type of thing, although that is also a sign of aging and low estrogen, but chronic insomnia, cognitive drag, anxiety spikes, mood volatility, loss of resilience. I mean, that these are the types of symptoms that we're talking about that women and society say, oh, that's just aging, just push
Oh,
through.
we all have that. We all get brain farts. We all do. Oh, you'll have a hot flash. Isn't that funny? Let's all laugh. I just don't find it funny. I don't find it funny when my brain doesn't work. I don't find it funny when my employees' brains don't work. I mean, how good is that for me or for the employer? So, every way around, I mean, nobody's happy when women's hormones are deficient. So, one of the truths, Maggie, that you were asking about is women need to understand that how they feel are their symptoms that they feel, the happy symptoms and the not so happy symptoms or the feeling horrible symptoms. Those are signals and clues to your hormone levels. So symptoms are clinical indicators. If you have positive symptoms and positive clinical indicators, chances are you have some good estrogen on board. Negative clinical indicators, you'll feel it by way of cognitive decline, ADD issues, inability to focus, insomnia, low energy. Women lose their creativity, their energy. But when estrogen is restored, especially to youthful levels, the messaging to the brain is that the woman is not aging and dying off, and that she is young, youthful, and should be productive. So she gets her wits about her again. Her brain starts firing again the way that it's supposed to, and it starts working, and she becomes productive and creative. So there's a big difference between the hormones that women take and how they feel. So this is a good way for those women who are not on HRT and who are on low dose HRT. If you have headaches, migraines, mood swings, insomnia, joint pain, low energy, these are symptoms of estrogen deficiency. I'm not saying that that's what you have right now, but 80 to 90% of the time, the cause is estrogen deficiency, not because you don't have a fan on your desk to blow on you when you're having a hot flash. So estrogen, when estrogen is fully restored, vitality and brain are restored. And I want to say fully restored. That full restoration can't happen if women wait too long to restore their estrogen. See, the lower estrogen gets, the more the frontal lobe shrivels up and shrinks, and women lose their ability to reason and to make rational, confident decisions. And so one of the best ways to preserve brain function and cognition is to keep the brain saturated in estrogen. And so the longer a woman waits to restore her estrogen completely, the more tissue damage takes place to her organs, her systems, and her brain. So your symptoms are clinical indicators of how you feel. If you feel good every day for no real good reason, chances are you have some good estrogen in your blood. If you don't feel good, if you feel horrible, if you're dragging all day long, if people irritate you all the time, you might want to take a look at your estrogen, even if you are on HRT. The other truth, Maggie, to wrap this up here with this is you can't accommodate an empty hormone tank with anything other than estrogen. Not progesterone, not testosterone, not a fan, not a temperature control issue, nothing on this planet fixes the side effects of estrogen deficiency the way estrogen does. And this is what we have to look at as a society. Let's stop tiptoeing around these issues and give women the amount of estrogen they need so they're not crazy, so their brain doesn't fall apart, so they can function and thrive through society and be contributing members, not only in the workplace, but of society and of the family. And
So, how does a woman listening know if this is happening to her at work?
as I mentioned, this is beyond the workplace. So women don't just show up in the office and clock in, and now all of a sudden their brains and bodies are falling apart. Women know when they don't feel like themselves. So pay attention to the clinical indicators. And this is really what I want women to understand here is you, not your employer, not your sister, nobody, not your friends. You are the one that is responsible for your brain function. Nobody can fix this other than you. So you have to understand what's going on with your brain, your indicators. If you find that you're having cognition issues, if you're having a hard time finding words, if your memory is slipping, if you're slower processing, or if you're just dragging and just never can quite get into the groove, these are types of things that estrogen deficiency contributes to. There's a big difference in how a woman feels when she has plenty of estrogen and when she's estrogen deficient. And a lot of that has to do with sleep quality, energy, moods, cognition. So these are not moral failures, really. They are clinical indicators. And this is why I say pay attention to how you feel. Don't just complain about your hot flashes and night sweats and headaches. That should tell you to take action. That should tell you what you should do next steps. But the last place I would look is your employer, because your employer won't be able to fix this for you. They'll make your misery a lot easier to tolerate while you're at the workplace for their benefit. But once you go home, you still have to deal with this.
Marie, when you're talking about adequate hormone restoration, the way you use it clinically, how do you define that? What to you is adequate hormone restoration?
So adequacy is not a vague label, Maggie. It's a measurable target. It is a sweet spot of hormonal balance where women have the right amount of the right hormones. Our hormone sweet spot model uses three converging targets: estradiol target range, FSH suppression, and clinical indicator score. Hormonal balance is a clinical destination meeting these three criteria. And this is what women need to understand and know, and even doctors. When the brain is no longer operating in an estrogen starvation mode, cognition, mood stability, and resilience often show within minutes, Maggie. I mean, really within minutes. It is so common that when I walk patients through their initial hormone dose, by the time we get off that call, the patient is usually questioning, can it work this fast? My brain is like, I feel like somebody just opened the sunroof or the fog is clearing. Can this happen in the short amount? Yes, yes, yes. When women get enough estrogen, the brain wants to work. It comes alive. And when the brain of a woman comes alive, so does a woman. And so does her desire to want to participate in life because she feels good. Her brain is working. She can connect with other people. She can communicate. She's creative. She's a team player. So really, if a woman is on HRT and still symptomatic, then chances are she's not on the right HRT system, because a good HRT system and an advanced HRT protocol is designed for full restoration, to fill up a woman's hormone tank completely, not just about a third. And then the workplace outcome is really the restoration returns capacity. Accommodations become really secondary, and they're not necessary, and they're really not a part of the conversation because it's just not a problem.
So in your opinion and expertise, what is the employer's role here without turning the workplace into a clinic?
Let me be clear. I do support humane accommodations. I'm not against that. I'm not anti-support, but I think the support is mistargeted. I'm not anti-replacing treatment with the workplace workarounds. Employers should not be pressured to have to make all these accommodations or create forced conversations around menopause. Why would employers want people to talk about menopause in the work? What does that have to do with what we're there to do as employees and employers, as the business?
What occurs to me, Marie, is that with this next step in menopause awareness, and these menopause conversations at work and accommodations, it's like one more big brick in the facade of, oh, we're helping women.
We're helping.
And
we care about
now
you.
We're bringing this into the workplace. This has now gone from a personal issue to a workplace issue. And women, it's actually another brick wall between women getting the actual treatment they need. That's like what's the light bulb that's just gone on for me.
It's like everybody else in society has to adapt to the behavior of women who are hormonally deficient, how they feel, the moods and the behaviors of a hormonally deficient woman we're all supposed to adapt to. When we can actually give her the right amount of the right hormones and she's happy again.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is that this conversation now in the workplace is putting yet another layer between women uh, getting the treatment they actually need. And this is one more level of society buy-in on this topic that I think is going to make it even more difficult for women to get the treatment they need. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, it is a barrier. But one thing I do have to say, the women in the UK who I believe really have pushed this movement for years, if
Which
I
movement?
the menopause in the workplace movement, create, accommodate, because women in the UK, they don't have access to good hormones. They're only given droplets. So yeah, I would be in my workplace screaming too. If you're not going to give me good hormones, then make my life better. Otherwise, I'll make your life miserable. And I tell you something, when we were, because we had this issue in the clinic as the practice was growing. Like in the beginning, when we were learning about third and fourth generation protocols and how women who actually were fully restored were different women. And we noticed this with patients, but also with staff. And then we noticed that there were two different levels of production out of staff. There were the staff that was more the argumentative staff, the staff that was always complaining about something or a policy or why are we doing it this way or why are we, just constantly squawking about things. And others, another employee who is just adapted, just like we did with patients. Why is this woman acting this way? And why is this woman acting this way? And here we have it in our real life situation. Why is this employee acting like that? The world is against her. And she comes in bringing everybody down and telling everybody how horrible she slept last night and how everybody's going to have to carry her load because she just feels horrible. And she's just going to be in the break room for a few minutes. And then somebody else has to do her job. Like, what? And I was like, okay, so what are we going to do about this? And you can't in the interview process say, okay, tell me, do you have your labs with you? I'd like to see what your estrogen levels are. Bring that into your interview, please. You can't do that. But now we're starting to recognize this is a deal in the office. So now then we actually in our business meeting, when I was talking to the doctors, it's like, hey, why don't we offer this as a perk? So then we went even further. It's like we want our staff to be as healthy as possible. So we offer them free HRT care, free hormone therapy, free hormone coaching. But I also, any pharmacy that we worked with, compounding pharmacy that we worked with, I negotiated in our agreement that they had to supply free hormones for our staff. No charge, guaranteed for as long as they were employed in the practice. Also, we bought gym memberships to a family membership because we wanted to encourage the entire family to go. And then we also bought memberships to the local chapter of the Weston A. Price Foundation so that they can educate themselves on food and nutrition on their own time because they expressed that they wanted to. I was surprised how many people took up that one and they were showing up at the workshops. But really, employers, we found that if we actually created a healthy work environment and encouraged that when anybody brought food to the office, that it was healthy, that it was relatively healthy. So we wanted to create that environment and we did. And so we have workplace walks. So if an employer wants to make a great environment for everybody, not just the women going through menopause, but everybody that has to work with them, give those women hormones and give them a good environment, a healthy environment to work in, to where everybody that's on the staff is healthy. Because there's really nothing like a very hormonally healthy staff. It is productive. It's happy. I mean, could you imagine going to work, Maggie, every day where every woman, all 12 women that you work with are hormonally balanced? Do you know how much fun that is? It is. We had so much fun in that particular clinic I'm referring to right now. Everybody was happy. We were laughing and joking to the point where patients would come in early because they liked hanging out with us because we were fun and fun loving. Maggie, the highest leverage employer move is to provide access to good HRT care for women.
All right, Marie, we've talked about a lot here in this episode. Let's make this real practical. I'd like to ask you to give us 3 clear action lists: one for employed women, one for self-employed women, and one for employers.
So, action steps for employed women. Don't wait to feel absolutely miserable to get your hormones restored. What you want to do is get your hormone levels checked and find somebody who knows what they're doing with full restoration with regards to prescribing HRT. Find a good hormone balancing team that includes good clinical hormone coaching. Full hormone restoration is a process over a period of time. It's a titration adaptation process. It's 3 phases. And so having somebody walk you through that process is really important. And getting on that good HRT system is important. If you take a low dose HRT system, you won't get the same benefits if you have a HRT system designed for full restoration. Seek out a good farm to table diet. We refer our patients to the Weston A. Price Foundation for all of the dietary education and information because it's just a robust platform that gives great information for hormonal balance and eating. So women understand that how you feel is up to you, not your employer and not your husband and not anybody else. So you need to get your labs checked. You need to monitor your clinical indicators, and then you need to get on an HRT system designed for full restoration. But these also hold true, Maggie, for those women who are self-employed. Women who are self-employed have another added level of stress. In fact, I would not recommend opening a business until you know your hormones are fully restored because you need that foundation to build this business. So you are both the performer and the employer. So hormone adequacy is just really an operational infrastructure. It should just be considered for anything. So your accommodations will be self-designed. So when you start feeling cruddy, just like, okay, I'm going to need some hormones because I'm going to need to make it through my day. I'm going to need to make these decisions. And take care of yourself. Running a business can take up all of your time, but you have to put together a schedule that allows for quality sleep at the right time when the sun is down, a good exercise routine, a good farm to table diet, and a good HRT system. Treat symptoms as performance data. When sleep and cognition are in decline, let that be a red flag for you that something's happening with your hormones, and monitor your hormones. Make sure you go into a doctor who knows exactly where your hormones need to be. So if you ask your doctor, where do my hormones need to be? And if they say, well, it's bio-individual, we don't really know, you'll never get your hormones balanced. Your doctor should be able to tell you most women do best when estrogen's in this range, when progesterone's in this range, when FSH is in this range, because they have experience with this and they know. For employers, I have one super critical recommendation. Consider teaming up with Panacea Sciences Advanced Hormone Balancing Clinics. We have advanced HRT protocols that will help take your employees from a state of hormone deficiency to their hormone sweet spot, so everybody benefits.
Great suggestions, Marie. How can you wrap this all up for us here?
So what you're watching, Maggie, happen with menopause in the workplace movement is this. Employers are being asked to accommodate the downstream effects of hormone deficiency, sleep loss, cognitive drag, anxiety, mood volatility, rather than society insisting that all women have access to competent hormone care that restores physiologic capacity. Accommodations can reduce friction, but they cannot correct the side effects of estrogen deficiency the way a full tank of estrogen can. When we normalize the symptoms of hormone deficiency, such as menopause or PMS, as just a part of life, we lock women and their families into unnecessary suffering. Menopause at work is not a mandate for lower standards. It's a mandate for estrogen adequacy.
Thanks for the wrap up, Marie. What do you want to say directly to women who feel you might be speaking right to them right now?
If you're a woman struggling at work and think it might be your hormones, go to advancedhormonebalancing.com and book a discovery session and let's talk about it. You can be a good candidate for one of our hormone restoration programs. And if there's something that you would like us to discuss on the Menopause Moxie podcast, or you have a question for a future Ask Moxie episode, send us an email at moxie@menopausemoxie.com. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, everybody benefits when your hormones are balanced. I'm Marie Hoäg, and this is the Menopause Moxie podcast.